Thank you everyone to hearing me. Here we're going to talk about spontaneous environments in rural areas and especially our case study, which is Espacio Común of Nalda, Spain. This is a part of my PhD on the making, which is about the impact of cultural participation in near-rural environments and digitization as a common ground for new senses of belonging at the University of Deusto. And my director in this case is Fernando Bayón Martín. And we are now into the digital part of the Arts in Society Congress 2022. Okay, for the beginning, what we talk about when we are talking about sustainable culture, where in this case we got this definition, which is for me the higher or the most important one, that is taking into account the desires and expectations of local communities in order to approach the resources to the fullest, to be sustainable in themselves, we can say. And talking about intangible heritage, in this case, we have a full definition which comes from the UNESCO, and they talk about the practices, expressions, knowledge, and skills that communities, groups, and sometimes individuals recognize as part of their cultural heritage. In here we can see an image that I create to talk about how culture could be the bridge between human and its environments, in this case the urban environment and also the rural one. By what? By doing what, you may say. But in this case we have different movements that are really important for that, to allow this, like migrations, commuting, traveling, tourism, and also all of this is generating new senses of ruralism, in this case, or neo-ruralism. How this affects culture, that's the main question we can say. Okay, we have a lack of cultural centers in small places, and also we have some coexistent problems between neighbors, because this is normal. We are coming from cities with a lot of cultural practices that are different, and this is hard to sometimes put in common. Also, our heritage is sometimes super rooted into the role of ethnographical museums, and audience development, in this case, has a high implication of local associations. Why? Because associations are important. Associations is kind of, you have to do that. You have to work with people, and people have to work to avoid that lack of, in this case, cultural centers or cultural agenda they got. Our community sense of belonging, it's also different into these environments. Why? Because we need spontaneity and co-working for leisure and well-being. Okay, in here we can see an own source that I create to talk about, in this case, cultural heritage, their frameworks and driving forces. In cultural heritage, we got two main questions, which is what we understand by sustainability and what we understand as participation. This is going to be the key questions to avoid, or not to avoid, the opposite way around, to just answer. And for doing this, whatever we understand as sustainability or participation, we are going to need action frameworks, like in this case, the Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda, in this case 2030, which is open now, and it's the main framework worldwide. And also we may need a really nice legislation. It's going to be another important framework. Individual and collective initiative as well as going to be important. And our driving forces have to be private agents, public, private, of, in this case, mixed institutions, and people, the associations, local action groups, assemblies, all the things you can imagine in this case. Okay, and now we are landing into our case study, which is Espacio Común in Nalda, Spain. This photo is from one of the most important associations that are part of this project, that is PANAL Association. Okay, so, but we need to think, we may think, what is this? What is Espacio Común? In this case, this is a social innovative project that was born in the, well, super close to us in 2018. And it has been born in the non-used part of the cooperative Nuestra Señora de Villavieja, who was super rooted in this case in prunes, because it's the main business talking about agriculture in this area. And it has been linked with this cooperative and also 2 local associations of Nalda, of the village, that are Nalda, PANAL, and El Colletero. They are the main ones. This is a social and solidarity economy purpose that enabled the incorporation of people in the creative world, which is super hard to do. So our main goals are to act as a reference for cultural activities that can arise from the rural environment, to provide a rural activist space open to creators to undertake, to build alliances between projects, local agents, creators, and different kinds of entities, whatever you cannot think about, because they are living things, and also to promote, in this case, employment and self-employment in the village of Nalda and its surroundings. Talking about one of that kind of activities we were thinking about is the primitive oven. Espacio Común is currently working on the elaboration of some pilot productive initiatives that are super important for us as a team, and they are important because we are, in this case, 13 creators working together as one in this kind of activities. This is an activity that also includes gastronomy, but the main use of that is to create primitive pottery, because we have a lot of artisans of the pottery in the space. And the main idea was, and still being, to open this research for more people interested to understand the new values of sustainability, mutual support, and development projects linked to creativity and agroecology, from the present to a better future. In here we can see 3 different images of the processes of this we have been taking to create this primitive oven. In the first one we can see the photos are in this case taken by Nayera Arrieta, an illustrator that is part of the team of the 13 artists that are working together there. And in the first photo we can see how we were using the main material that is all around, using some recycled wood and also metals, and also the earth we got into our land to create that primitive oven from the beginning. So we were using our hands. In this case, 4 of the 13 creators were doing that together. So it was really interesting to see it also in the other part, just taking photos and recording everything. And in the second one, you can see how we start to put some different pottery pieces in the inside, and also how we prepare the space, the inner space, to do that. And the fire was in the lower part. Once we got a lot of hot on that and everything is been working, we used to cover it with a metal, material, as you can see in the third photo, and use that to cook as well. So we choose to do like a really interesting, it's kind of a cycle. You can see how we start at the beginning and how we end. And also to have lunch together is really important, to allow encounters and to have really interesting meetings and to have super fun conversations all around the fire. And to see the final productions that should be really interesting primitive pottery pieces. And this is the end. Thank you.